Welcome to Catching Up with Council. I'm your host, Leah Longbrake. Today we're catching up with Ward 10 Councilman Anthony Hairston. Welcome, Councilman.
Thank you for having me.
It's your first time here at TV20.
It is, and I am
you.
so excited to be here with you all.
Start by telling us about yourself and where you grew up.
So again, I'm Anthony Hairston. I represent the 10th Ward on Cleveland City Council, born and raised right in the Collinwood, Glenville neighborhood. Although I grew up on the border of Glenville and Collinwood, but I also went to Collinwood High School. And so, you know, at that time, it's always the Collinwood versus Glenville in the community. So, I had to balance that act, living in Glenville, being born and raised there, and then going up to Collinwood for school. But no, it was a good thing growing up. Got a chance to be a part of both communities and both neighborhoods. And now, as a council person representing both community as well. I represent 5 different communities in Ward 10. So we start at the very eastern end of the ward, which is Nottingham Villages, and then we trickle down to Euclid Park, and then we come on down to South Collinwood, Glenville, Forest Hills, and then St. Clair Superior. So we have a very diverse ward, very diverse community, great people, awesome people who I love working with every single day.
Did you always want to be in politics?
I always get that question about, Councilman, how did you get here? How did you start? Well, my grandfather was a longtime steel worker, and I always get this confused, whether it's LTV or J&L Steel first. One was first, and then they changed the name to the other. And so he was a part of the Steelworkers Union there, and he would take me with him. I remember driving down I-76, going on which we now know as Steelyard Commons, but that was where he worked when I was a kid growing up. And so we would take those rides down the highway, go to those union rallies and those union hall meetings. And so it was something about that interaction that stuck with me and said, you know what, this is what I want to do when I grow up, is to be in a life of public service and do what I can to help the neighborhood. Worked on several campaigns, political campaigns, growing up as a teenager. The very last campaign that I think that really tipped the scales for me was the Pierce campaign in Cleveland, that I was a student at school. Listen, you need volunteer hours. Hey, you guys want to come out and help us? Absolutely, sure. And it was that moment, just interacting with not necessarily him, but just the people who were involved working in Cleveland, organizing, that I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we've been rolling since. Working since.
Well, you're in your first term as a city councilman, but you were a county councilman previously. What made you decide to run for city?
And so, as you said, I served on the Collier County Council, represented the 10th district, and sometimes folks said, wait a minute, 10th district, 10th ward. I say I had the luxury of shifting from 10th district to 10th ward, and so yes, we left that position and came to Cleveland City Council. For me, and not saying that the county council wasn't intimate, but I really, being from this particular neighborhood that I represent, born and raised here, was educated here, played here, and also worked here in this ward. For me, the feeling of the intimacy of that, I really enjoy that, and so having the opportunity to interact with the people that I grew up with, the places where I got my haircut as a kid, and now representing them as a council person was something that I really wanted to pursue.
Aside from the intimacy, what's been the biggest difference between the two positions?
The calls, for sure. The calls and issues have been truly the biggest difference. On the county council, there's a difference in issues that you deal with, more so of the macro level issues. Whether, hey, Councilman, my caseworker has not gotten back to me. My benefits are about to expire. Can you help me reach out to the correct departmental managers? Or my family member has been incarcerated and I can't get in contact with anyone for information, or my deed was filed incorrectly, because again, those are all county level functions. But for me, it was a little bit different. Being from the neighborhood and now represented on the county, at that time on the county council, the intimacy, as I said, was there because they said, you know what, we know Anthony, we're going to call him, right? Whether or not that was a function of mine that I was responsible for, city versus county, but people still decided to reach out to me, and I appreciated that, and we worked as we possibly could to help them through those issues.
So in your ward, demolitions have been happening quite a bit,
Yes.
one of it being the YMCA building on St. Clair Avenue.
Yes.
And you've advocated for quite some time
Yes.
about vacant buildings.
Yes.
Can you tell us where we're at with this process?
So, as you said, the YMCA was demolished earlier this year. We have a fantastic director of building and housing, Director Yana Dano Blue, who has really been working with us to identify these monster structures, including residential, and put together a strategic plan to bring these properties down. Aside from the YMCA, literally across the street was another property that we work with Director Donna and her staff, which was the old Millionaire's Barbershop location, which again, right across from Glenville High School, right next door towards City Park. And so I, along with the director and staff, believe that these were properties that we needed to target to come down. You said advocacy. Advocacy is key to ensuring that a lot of these properties come down. You know, a lot of times, because we have so many properties to demolish, you know, there's so many other areas that's on officials' radar, but it is up to us to make sure that we put them in front of them to say, listen, we need to do this, we need to do this now. But again, the officials there, the director and her staff, you know, has a sense of urgency as well as we do to get these properties down. And we are going street by street, block by block to determine these properties that needs to come down. Our CDC, we have two that represents our community development corporations. They're working diligently with my office to identify these properties, along with building and housing officials, to make sure that we at least get them into the pipeline. And for those that have not been condemned and have not gone through that legal process yet,
right,
to get them in that pipeline so they can begin to flow, so that at some point we can be able to get our hands on them and get them down. Because our babies and our people are walking past these buildings and residential structures every single day. Not safe.
Not safe at all.
At all. At all.
I want to talk about CDCs in a second, but
Yes.
with continuing with demolishing buildings, the First Energy 107-year-old lakeshore plant
Yes.
was
Yes.
demolished and reseeded. Where are we at with that process? Because there's talk about what it could be and should be, and so far we're not hearing really anything. So where are we at?
Well, before the property was actually demolished, there had been discussions about redevelopment for that particular site. Just east of that is Gordon Park. Just north of that is the lakefront, and then back around to the First Energy site. You are in between MLK, where the Cultural Gardens sit, in between downtown Cleveland. And so right now, there's been limited discussions on the site, but the Famicos Foundation, who is the CDC for Ward 10 that covers Glenville and St. Clair Superior of my ward, we are engaging in a master plan study for that particular area of our ward. And so we'll engage Cleveland State University, I believe, and then some other players, organizations in the community to come together to determine what do we do and what is the best and highest use for this particular area of our community. And again, you know, we have a very prime section of our neighborhood. Cultural Gardens, you go right to University Circle, or you can go 90 West and you're downtown within about a matter of 4 minutes.
Right.
So proximity is great with those locations. So the master plan, we have some other organizations we're going to be working with to put together a plan for that area. City planning is also involved with us and working to figure out what do we do with that site as well.
Because that land is like 60 acres, something like that.
It's a large parcel of land, very large parcel of land.
Well, with spaces, parks.
Yes.
You have two in Mark Trumba Park and Forest Hill Park.
Yes.
Both are undergoing development. So
Yes.
can you tell us about that?
So we'll start with Glenville/DuPont Park. Some in the neighborhood call it DuPont. You know, it sits at Glenview and 110th Street. And so yes, that is a $1 million plus renovation of that park, from new gazebo to game tables, workout equipment, splash pads, other water features, walking trail, and so many other things that are coming to that park. And so that park will be constructed in 2 phases. So phase 1 will include some of the things I mentioned already, plus the basketball courts in a brand new parking lot to support the folks who come to use the park. The second phase, which will happen a year or 2 afterwards, hopefully, because the sewer district is also still doing tunneling work in the near area. So the second phase will be comprised of the be baseball diamonds, a graded field for soccer and football for our muni leagues to use. So that will happen in the second phase. So the first phase is near completion, and so we're hoping for a ribbon cutting or a kickoff before the winter months. The walking trail has been put in that starts at St. Clair and it ends at 109th Street at the MLK Park. And so the walking trail will take you from St. Clair to 110th Street, from 110th through the old DuPont Park and the old DuPont Park to MLK Park. They began to plant the trees and the other flowers and plants along the walkway as well. So we are really excited for this park to open.
It sounds big for your community.
Oh, absolutely. You know, this is the same site where we tore down the YMCA. We knew that the park was coming. We knew that obviously it was across the street from the school, and so we couldn't allow that structure to sit vacant and abandoned at the very edge of this park where we're trying to get people to come and congregate and get to know each other. It is coming along very well. You know, I'm happy to see this benefit and this investment in our community, because when you talk to residents say, Councilman, I don't remember in the most recent years that we've had this level of investment in one area of our neighborhood here in Glenville, in this part of Glenville. And I said, you know what, you're right. Outside of infrastructure such as road repairs and demolishing properties, this has been one of the single biggest $1 million plus investments of new construction that we've had in that particular area of Glenville for quite some time.
What do you attribute that to?
Hard work, dedication, advocacy, community engagement, all of those things, because the administration on the council heard the people and said, you know what, we have to do something here. And this is also part of the mayor's initiative to create enhanced spaces for communities such as parks and playgrounds, a part of the I believe the bond program that he had put together along with council.
Very good.
Yeah. Mark Trumba, second park is actually split between Ward 8 and Ward 10. And so part of the park is in Ward 10 and part of the park is in Ward 8. But again, this is a benefit for all of the community there in South Collinwood. Again, Mark Trumba Park was a park that had outdated equipment, rusted swings. It had a pool there that was a bit of in rough shape, but now we have again, $1 million plus project that's coming to that neighborhood for those residents as well. And I can't tell you how many residents are excited for this to happen. In fact, the grand opening and ribbon cutting will be held within the next few days.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
And then Forest Hill?
Forest Hill. So Forest Hill is Glenview, DuPont Park. So there's a few names, right? Yeah. So the Forest Hill Parkway School once set there where the new park at Glenview/DuPont is coming. Okay. Yes.
So if anyone's confused,
that's right.
They're all one.
They're all one.
They're all together.
They're all one. Because some folks there, that if you live on 112th side, that's Forest Hill.
Right.
If you live on 110th side, they call it DuPont Glenview. So it's really just about what you identify with of the name for the neighborhood. But it's officially the Glenview Park.
Acceptable.
Yeah, all acceptable.
There's not one that reigns
that's right.
over the rest.
That's right. All acceptable. All acceptable.
So the City of Cleveland's Planning Commission has been conducting a St. Clair Avenue study to revitalize the street, which is going to hopefully, possibly have special lanes for bikers with special curbs. Can you tell us about this?
So yes, a few years back, the council people from the Northeast side, along with, at that time I was on the county council, and myself and my former colleague Yvonne Conwell, along with members of Cleveland State City Planning Commission and many others, had convened to develop the St. Clair Corridor study. And so within that study, it called for dedicated lanes for those who are on bikes and other pedestrian access along the corridor as well. And right now, the first set of dedicated bike lanes will be on Superior Avenue. And so with the support through NOACA, City Planning Commission, and I believe some other funders in the City of Cleveland, you know, the first set, and they will do pilots for this initially to add the dedicated bike lanes will be along Superior Avenue from 55th to downtown. And so St. Clair, will be on later phase, but the dedicated bike lanes will happen on Superior Avenue first. And so these are, at first, I was a little hesitant, about what that looks like, and having folks ride down the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And so I got a chance to view some examples of what was happening in other cities and how they created the barriers around the bike riders to ensure safety for those who are riding down the middle of the street. But it also allows for greater access for those who are driving up and down the streets as well, and the vehicles themselves. Because if you notice, some of the bike lanes we have now, if a person is parked on the side, open their door, a biker,
right,
and folks are driving, it can really create a dangerous situation there. But these dedicated bike lanes in the middle of the road, I think, would be a safe alternative for those who choose to bike daily.
Very cool.
Yes.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about, but we have to take a
Absolutely.
quick break.
All right.
So don't change that channel. We'll be right back
All right.
with more Catching Up with Council.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back to Catching Up with Council. I'm your host, Leah Longbrake. Today we're catching up with Ward 10 Councilman Anthony Hairston. Welcome back, Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Opportunity Corridor,
Yes.
which has been a big topic in the city,
Yes.
it is next to your ward, basically, with East 105. Not directly into your ward, but close. But there's a lot of development happening there. How are you planning on getting that momentum being pulled into the surrounding streets?
Well, as you said, the Opportunity Corridor, it's close, but it's still a bit away south of Ward 10. And so the 105th project, which is the Mayor's Transformation Initiative that is happening at 105th and Wade Park in Ashbury there. And so there's also planned development for road infrastructure repairs and other public right-of-way enhancements that'll come down to the Bracknell city limits, which will run right into Ward 10. And so we are thankful that this plan includes part of our neighborhood as well. And when the planning process began with my colleague and the mayor and city planning, we made sure that we brought up Ward 10, and we were a part of that discussion to ensure that the infrastructure will continue down to the city limits there as we bump up against Bracknell. The question has come up before in just community meetings about whether we will see new construction along that corridor, and I can't speak directly to the plan as a whole, but my understanding is that there will be some additional construction of projects that'll come down the St. Clair or the 105th corridor as you inch towards St. Clair. Will pick up Ward 10 in that area there of the intersection. Now, as you approach the 105, Elk Avenue, Bracknell, city limits, there has been some enhancements already from sidewalks and curbs, and now they'll be coming back to do the asphalt. And that's another place where strategic demolition have been targeted so that we can invite investment, I would say, to happen along that corridor as well, because oftentimes it's hard to see through the boarded windows or the broken glass or the collapsing foundations of a structure. But if we remove those from our streets, we hope and we think that will entice investment to come down that corridor even further, which I believe it will.
Have that blank space.
That's right. Have the blank canvas and say, listen, here's what we have. Yeah. Hopefully you can see the vision as we see the vision. Hope you can appreciate our neighborhood as we who live there appreciate our neighborhood. And again, that investment from the Mayor's Transformation Initiative at Glenville Circle North, we hope that it will spark other development along that Glenville area going north of Superior.
So before the break, you had mentioned at one point CDCs. You and Ward 8 Councilman Mike Polensek have joined forces to create this new robust CDC. Talk to us about this brand new one.
So the CDC that Councilman Polensek and I have partnered with each other to work in the community is Greater Collinwood Development, who are phenomenal. Our director, Jamar Doyle, Cynthia Brookins, who heads operations, Peggy Kersey, who's the housing manager, and the other staff members who also are employed there as well, have been, again, phenomenal to work with. There's monthly meetings that takes place in order to strategize, to determine what it is are we working on, what's the vision, and that has really been, and Councilman Polensek brings that history, right? You know, he's been in public service for quite some time, which, you know, we have gained a lot of knowledge and information just kind of about what the neighborhood once was and kind of what was happening there and how we can, you know, not reinvent the wheel, but really work to enhance some of the things that we still have going on there. You know, they have been great with us to put together that vision. Greater Collinwood has been, they were there under a different name before, and so they changed their name, you know, with a new vision, new leadership, and so I'm happy to say that it's going well.
That's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of exciting, Collinwood was chosen as the recipient for the latest chain reaction, which is huge. So tell us what the next steps are now that Collinwood has won this.
So yes, Chain Reaction, many of you have remembered, it was a spinoff of the Cleveland Hustle that LeBron James and company were a part of. And so Chain Reaction was the extension of that with local investors to support growth with current businesses and to invite in new businesses into the community as well. And so Collinwood is the latest recipient of Chain Reaction. Yay. And so I'm happy to say that it's going well. I've been featured on Kicking It with Kenny, along with Councilman Polensek, our CDC director, and a host of businesses who applied and who had gone through the process to be a part of Chain Reaction. They went through the first initial phase. They were after the initial phase in the vetting and people featuring their businesses and products and what they do. They went down to 10, and then from 10, I believe, to another number, and then we'll have the final number of those who will make it to the finale for Chain Reaction. So for our neighborhood, this is a very good thing because it allows us to and grow current businesses that are there. It allows us to fill vacant storefronts. It allows us to invite people who may have not visited our neighborhood at one point or another if it were not for this program that we're doing, Chain Reaction. So, you know, I think it's a good thing for us. Residents are happy that it's coming. We're excited as well, and this type of investment in the community is only a good thing for us.
We kind of touched upon some issues, but what do you feel are the biggest challenges that Ward 10 faces?
Our Ward 10 during the foreclosure crisis was hit hard, and so a lot of people had lost their homes. A lot of people were forced out of their homes because of these subprime mortgages, these predatory lenders who really wreaked havoc on the neighborhood. And so the vacant abandoned properties, along with the opioid use that we see all across the world is happening. Right now, I believe, is our two biggest challenges that we have in our community. And I'll start with the opioid first. Although our proximity to the shoreways and the highways are great, you know, it can pose an issue at times as well, because folks will jump on the highway, jump off to do whatever that they're doing, you know, but we have been working with our district commander and other safety forces to deal with those issues. It isn't at the level of many other communities, but again, we're not exempt. No community exempt. And the demolition, again, we've made strategic strides, great progress and strides with getting these properties down. So although we were hit hard at one point, that we are gaining momentum. We are taking back our community by getting these zombie structures off of our streets.
That's the best way to put it. Zombie structures.
That's right. They are zombie structures. Zombie structures. Yes.
So I have to ask you, what is the best part about being a councilman?
The people. I truly and really enjoy working and interacting with the people of my ward every single day. There's never a dull moment at all. You learn something new, something interesting every day, and there's so many of our people who are rich with history, not only about this neighborhood, just about where they have come from, things that they have endured, and obstacles they have had to overcome to be who they are today. And those things, that can be exciting to just sit and listen to. I can't tell you how many times I just go by a resident house, I sit on the stoop, and just sit there for a couple hours, just chit-chatting and talking with them. Or I pull up in front of the house, a neighbor comes out, and we're just talking a little bit, while we're on the street. So, the people, the businesses there, just such great folks. The resiliency that they have gone through some troubling times in the community, as we've talked about, for really rebounding and moving in a direction that is good for us all. If it weren't for the people, I don't think we'd be sitting here.
Well, that leads to my follow-up.
Yes.
What's the worst part?
I wouldn't really say there is a worst part. Every job can get challenging at times. Every job can be stressful. But again, it's about how you manage this distress, how you manage the issues that you have. And I had to, for me personally, I had to get, I'm a night owl at times, right? And so, I can find myself up at 1, 2 in the morning, emailing back or sending messages, or I know my assistant sometimes wakes up and says, "What is this?" Right? Go to sleep, right? Find my times just kind of maybe overworking a little bit, but we're learning to deal with that.
That's good. You have a passion for it.
Absolutely. Wouldn't be here.
Anything else you think the viewers should know about Ward 10?
Well, again, we are on the move. We've gotten streets that have been has not been touched for decades that are being redone this year. Shaw Avenue, parts of Eddy Road, Hayden and Woodworth, and a number of our residential streets. So look out for that. Watch for the orange cones and the orange barrels. But I had a couple residents reach out and said, "Listen, Councilman, we appreciate the hard work that you're putting in. We are seeing progress on issues that we have not been able to get done for decades. And until your arrival, we've been able to achieve some of those things." Now, I'm not saying that we're able to do everything, but I'm glad that people are noticing the progress and the change that we're having. We recently, along with coordination with our district officers and detectives who are phenomenal at the 5th District, our prosecutor's office, and a host of people were able to shut down a nuisance motel, Cleveland Motel, that has been a problem on Euclid Avenue for decades, that led to a lot of the prostitution and things that were happening there. And I'm happy to say that since that place has been shut down and closed up, we have seen a sharp decrease in those issues happen along that corridor. So, from the nuisance places, from infrastructure repairs that are going on that haven't been touched in decades, and to the new parks and playgrounds that are going on, I just ask that people come out, enjoy what we have to offer, stop in and grab you a pizza from Conjun's, take a ride down Hayden Avenue or Shaw, once the resurfacing is done, and then come on back and enjoy the other areas of the community. So, just look out for those orange cones. Stay tuned and just enjoy yourself.
How can we contact you and get more information on Ward 10?
And so we send out 3 newsletters here, and so with those newsletters, we try to make sure that we feature things that are happening in the neighborhood as best as we can. Sometimes on a timeline, things may not get out before a particular event, but we try to highlight and showcase things in our newsletters. I can be reached on Twitter at CCC10, I believe is my handler. I'm getting in the groove of the social media piece. I'm getting into social media, but also, email is also great, Hairston@clevelandcitycouncil.org. We can be reached by phone at 216-664-4743.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning in to Catching Up with the Council. As always, we'll have this information for you at tv20cleveland.com. I'm Leah Longbrake. Till next time.